All right, so I got a lot to get you guys caught up on. It's been a whirlwind. So the guys are out on the job with the skid steer, and they called me and they said it's knocking it through a rod is blowed up. I'm like, are you sure? They're like, oh yeah, it's done. It's done. So I was like, all right, just shut it down. I'll be there in a second. Don't do anything. So I get there, fire it up, and I can tell almost immediately. Fired up, knocking hard, white smoke. I'm like, it lost an injector. I've been around enough engines. I know it's lost an injector. So we got a pretty good Kubota dealership here. So I thought, well, I'll just call over to Kubota real quick and I'll see if they, if they got a known injector problem or anything like that. So call over, I call over to Kubota, and this unnamed guy, he's like, oh, you lost a turbo. I'm like, no, he's like, oh yeah, they got turbo problems. You lost a turbo. I'll go ahead and get your turbo ordered. I'm like, hold the boat here, buddy. Let me do a little investigating on this. So anyways, I can tell real quick that was going nowhere. So click, hang up the phone on him. So I get it limped back to the shop. I think I got one little clip of this thing running. If I can find it, I'll put it in here real quick. It's basically backing it in the shop. But get it in here, get it in the shop. I didn't get any video of tearing this thing down because I was in such a hurry to get it tore down and get parts ordered because I thought I had to do a job, but it's been raining nonstop, so that fell through. But anyways, what I did is I got it in here, and I did check the turbo because I had to take the turbo off to get to the injector. So turbo was fine, it had no problems. Get the injectors pulled out of it. It wasn't horrible getting them out. They were a little bit of a pain in the butt. Pulled number 3 out, pretty obvious. Number 3 hung wide open. So I did some calling around. Apparently these are Denso injectors, and Denso and Kubota have some sort of marriage amongst themselves to where they're like dealer only. And they're about $900 a pop plus tax and freight. And yeah, by the time you get one in hand, it's about $1,000. So anyways, I'm like, well, I'm 90% confident, 99% confident it's number 3. But like, before I go spend $1,000, I'm gonna take these things to Evansville and have them tested. So all right, so here's the injectors here. You can see I got them labeled 1, 2, 3, 4, how they come out. This one here is the problem one. So I went down to Inflow here in Evansville, and they can test these common rail injectors. I don't know if you can see this paper here, but this is basically what they test for. All these values here, this is the explanation for them. I don't know, I can maybe post that if somebody wants more information, but there's a couple things they look for, and the big one's the leak test at idle, yada, yada, yada. This is injector number 1, all green, it passed. So this is injector number 2, and it's failed the leak test and a few other things, which basically means it's got a bunch of wear on it, and it's gonna go out. And here's injector number 3. Yeah, it's no good. It's pretty much burnt. And then I don't know where the paper, yeah, it's still back there. Paperwork for injector 4, you can see it failed a few as well. It's marginal what it failed, but it still failed. So anyways, that was my whole problem. So in the midst of all that, I realized I've got 3 out of 6 or 3 out of 8 exhaust studs that are broke off. And I can't take all the credit for this. Chris come up and helped me get these out, but we ended up getting them out without a whole lot of issue. That one there was actually still sticking out enough we could get some vice grips on it. So had to end up pulling the exhaust manifold off of it, and then I pulled the turbo off the exhaust manifold because it's just going to be simpler to go back in. And then amongst all that, the DPF filter was all sooted up because basically the injector was dumping raw fuel. So yeah, that's the long short of what went down with my new skid steer. Now, I put about 100 hours on this thing since I bought it, and I'm 90%, I'm positive the previous owner didn't know this was going to happen and sell me a lemon. Well, here, I'll tell you the rest of the story. So I'm searching around for injectors, and I get a hold of there was a guy that commented on my video, Jonathan, whenever I was talking about which skid steer to buy, and he says, hey, if you ever need any help with Kubota, holler at me. I'm like, I need help. So I ended up emailing him, and he emailed me back like almost immediately. And I got to talking back and forth with him. I told him, I said, man, I lost an injector. He's like, pull your fuel cap off. Is it rusty? So I pull the fuel cap off, and boom. I'm like, yeah, it's rusty. He's like, Kubota had a problem with the fuel cap and the filler neck rusting. Something in that rust gets past the fuel filters, wipes out an injector. I'm like, hey, it's making sense. Rusty fuel cap, no injector. So it's all kind of making sense a little bit. And he actually helped me out. I'll get some of his stuff on here later. He's shipping me some stuff, but he was a huge help. I mean, huge help. YouTube pays off more ways than one, folks. Let me tell you. So he's actually shipping me some injectors. Whenever they come in, we'll unbox, look at all them. So while I got this thing tore down, I went ahead and I don't know if you guys can see in there. I went ahead and ran the valves, checked all the valve clearances and everything. I got that all cleaned up and ready for manifold go back on. So I need to clean that exhaust port out. And a few other things. I'm going to change all the filters and fluids and all that stuff. So I apologize. I did not get any video taking this thing apart. But I'm going to make it up to you guys. I'm going to get tons of video of putting it back together and telling you all the little quirks I have learned working on this thing. So stick with me. As parts start rolling in, I do have some parts have showed up from the local dealer. These are all the exhaust, I'll just do them on the floor. Exhaust studs here, all the exhaust nuts here. So my injectors are not in yet. I'm hoping they're being, today's Friday, I'm hoping they're in Monday. So, like I said, I promise I'll make it up to you. We'll get a lot of video putting this thing back together, and hope it works. So stay tuned. All right, guys, the first thing we got to do, I don't know if you guys can see back in there, but we got to get all the new exhaust studs in. So we're going to start back here. I'm going to double nut those and get them threaded in. They basically get threaded into that little groove right there. So step one of assembly, install exhaust studs. All right, guys, getting ready to put this exhaust manifold back on, and whenever I pulled this out, I pulled it out with a turbo on it. But I took it off for a couple different reasons. One, I think a big part of my problem was if you straight edged this exhaust manifold, as you can see, it looks pretty good now. It was like almost 30 thousandths warped, and if you look close, you can see where I've been running it on the belt sander over there, and it's these here are all good, but you can see where it's still just barely touching out there, but it's good on the mating surface, so it should be good. And that gave us an opportunity to get everything cleaned up and blowed out, and we're going to put it back on in pieces. Hope it works. What are you doing?
Shaking up your Pepsi.
That sounds dangerous.
Nuh-uh.
That's going to explode all over you, and you're going to be a sticky mess.
I'm not a bottle.
Look, even Bo thinks it's a bad idea.
I know.
Just remember, you make a mess, you clean the mess up.
I'm not. I only shaking that how much I just shake.
Okay, sounds good. All right, we're gonna put the exhaust manifold back on. You ready?
Okay.
Let's see if this thing fits in here.
New thing. Took it out and probably don't know how to put it back in.
Well, you don't have much confidence in me there, boy. Hope I remember how it goes back together. Oh, come on, stud. Got this hose in my way here a little bit.
Oh, we don't take this out after.
There she goes. Fits like a glove.
What?
All right, guys, we got the exhaust manifold on. That actually went pretty good. I will have to admit, for as daunting of a task as this looked in the beginning to pull injectors and exhaust manifold off this thing, Kubota did some pretty good things engineering-wise that make it somewhat manageable. I mean, it's still a skid steer and it's still tight quarters, but I've worked on a whole lot worse than that. But we got exhaust manifold on. Gunner lost my camera. So we found my camera. We're back in business. But we're going to drop this turbo down in here now. The biggest challenge of it is I'm going to try to leave these oil tube lines on, not bend them up. You don't want to bend these things. They got like a coating inside them and it can flake off, same as a fuel injector line. But get that down in there without damaging anything. Get it dropped in. That may be as far as we can go until we get injectors.
What was this for?
That's parts for Daddy's go-kart he never put together. Let's put the turbo on the skid steer.
Hey.
All right, let's do it. Let's see if we get this all slid down in there. What?
The Pepsi's naked.
Pepsi's naked.
Dude, look at him. He's naked. Naked. Look at it. Look at this naked boy. Look at it.
Hold on, buddy. Hold on. I'm trying to get this hose lined up. Come on. There she goes.
Look at him.
There she is. Went in there pretty simple. The biggest thing is you got this EGR cooler line and the line's kind of got to go down and split through it. Maybe been best to leave that line off, but I got them through there without any major issue. Their line's right up there where it needs to be, so I think we're in good shape. All right, guys, I got the turbo in there. I don't know if you can see, there's one bolt. Where's it at? That one right down there. I got the valve cover off. I took it off when the manifold was out. And I got the valve cover off now. I was able to get it back on, but need to pay attention to the order you put that back together, because that bolt could be a real booger. But the exciting part is, we got us a cool looking little box in today. Get this thing right side up and see what we got inside here if I do this without cutting myself. It's like Christmas, Luke. Check that out, I got some stickers. Jonathan Mansfield, he was a huge help in getting some of this stuff for me. Check that out. Oh, that's a pretty cool shirt. Sweet. Kids will enjoy that. Fancy poppy stuff. Hat, awesome. And the good stuff. I think this is what we're looking for right here. Set you guys down over here and see if I can get this opened up. That looks like them right there. That is just what we needed. Get those puppies put in now, I guess. All right, this is the other goodie we got in the box. I think it's a stainless steel filler neck. No, it looks like they switched over to a plastic fuel cap. According to Jonathan at Mansfield, this was a big contributor to our injector problems, and I think he's right because I cleaned out this settlement bowl here. It was completely full of rust. And yeah, that's what my fuel cap looked like. So the thought is rust contaminates the system, goes through, wipes out injectors, costs Dirt Perfect a bunch of money. And Jonathan was nice enough to try to help save me some money, which I greatly appreciate. So we're gonna get new fuel. I can't talk at all. Oh yeah.
What kind of screwdriver is that?
That's come in handy for possibly beating on something, screwdriver. We're gonna get the fuel filler neck on and get these injectors in and see if this thing will run. All right guys, I'm getting these new injectors ready to go back in and realize they didn't come with any O-rings. There's an O-ring that goes right here, which I believe is it a fuel gallery or oil? There's an O-ring that goes there, there's an O-ring that goes there, and then it's got the compression ring, which is this little brass washer that goes down below here. I rounded up some new O-rings that I think are going to work, but I'm going to have to reuse these. I cleaned them up. They look pretty good. I don't think it'll be an issue. So we'll get those all slid on there and get them ready to install. All right, got the injectors all ready to go back in, got the compression ring on, O-ring there, O-ring there. They do have this little plastic piece on the top. Whoops, I pop it off. I'll put it back on later because that, well, one, I don't want it to get broke, and two, that first valve cover is gonna go down over there and I don't think it'll fit. But before I slide these girls back in, I'm gonna go through and double check and triple check and clean all these injector holes. And make sure, I don't know if you guys can see down in there. It's a long ways down there. I got a little bit of crud and stuff in them, so take a little brake clean, air hose, clean them all out real good. I think I forgot to mention this earlier, but while I was in here, I did go ahead and run all the valves. I found a little procedure on the internet I went off of, and of course with the injector out, you can just put a screwdriver down the hole, find top dead center, and adjust them. So get those hoses cleaned out and we'll get those injectors dropped in there. Alright guys, got all the injectors in and I'm going to torque these down. I can't find the actual Kubota spec on what they're supposed to be, so I'm basically going 30 foot-pounds based off of fastener size. I think the most important thing is they are tight and they're all torqued the same, so that's what we're going to go with. Next thing we got to do is get that. It's a two-piece valve cover. Not sure why this air hose is leaking. Two-piece valve cover, and that first piece goes down on here, and it's kind of a booger because we got to get these injection lines pulled back. So I'm gonna go get it cleaned up, and see if we can get that thing slid down in there. I don't think that's going to be the easiest task, but we shall tackle it. Okay, actually I lied to you guys. The next thing we need to do is actually get this fuel return rail on there. It goes across all the injectors like so, and then there's a hole down in there in the head. That's a pretty important step to do before you put that valve cover on. So I am terrified I'm going to drop a nut or bolt or something down there where I'm not supposed to. So I'm gonna put this camera somewhere, and I may put a little grease on my fingers so stuff sticks to me, and try to get this booger fish down in there. Alright guys, I got that return line put on. There's nothing real fancy about it. I just went through and started all of them before I come back and tighten them down. These do have the fancy little clip. I don't know if you can see there, but it's got the little tab that ties the two sides together so you're not fiddle with that little washer, try not to lose it. So now that we got that done, we're going to go on to getting this valve cover here cleaned up. And this is the lower part of the valve cover. That's the upper part of the valve cover. So I think this is going to be our biggest tricks, getting that slid down in there. So I'm going to get it cleaned up and we'll see if we can get it put on. All right, guys, after some wrestling and some cussing, I finally got it down in there. It would have been really easy if I would have took these injector lines completely off, but that's not as easy as it sounds. So it wasn't too bad. I got her finagled in there. So the next thing that goes on top is the second piece. Actually, I'll put those plastic clips back on, and then the upper part of this has the wiring in it. So we'll get all the wires hooked back up to the injectors. I took a couple pictures of how that all went. It's pretty much self-explanatory, but just to double check myself, we'll get the right colors where they belong. We'll put all that in there next, so that's the plan. All right, guys, I got all my wiring back in there. I double checked everything to make sure I was good on the video I took earlier, to make sure the wires are back at the same place. I did take the time, I don't know if you can see here, I took the time to go back through and put all these zip ties back in. There's about 8 of them down through there. Just wanted to make sure that wire, 1, didn't get stuck in the valve cover when I put it back over, and 2, I didn't want it chafing on anything and shorting out. So I think at this point we're ready to turn this valve cover back over and get it bolted down, get the top of the engine sealed up, and then we'll move on to the DPF exhaust system. We're getting there. All right, guys, we got the valve cover all back on, tidied up, and electric hooked up. Did want to mention, don't forget the EGR cooler tube back there, because that's kind of important. Before we put that DPF on, I took this thing off. It makes it easier to slide back in there, but here she is. I got her all cleaned up. I actually cleaned this myself. I made a video on it. We'll see how it works. We're gonna try to slide that bugger back in there. It's kind of heavy, but I think we'll get it pretty easy. All right, there she is, guys. She's all in there, bolted down. It's not that hard. It's just kind of heavy and awkward, but I still got the fill cap off. The next thing we got to do is there is this conglomeration of a bracket. That thing, I don't know. It's overbuilt. It should serve its purpose, I guess, but we got to get it wiggled down in there. It sits right here in front, kind of goes, there's some mounting holes down there, goes up and over into a couple mounting holes here. But I'm going to try to get it wiggled in there. If there's any tricks to the trade, I'll definitely share them with you guys along the way. All right, guys, here it is. I got all the bracketry back on. It's not difficult. It's just a lot of pieces. Like this block here is separate from that block, and then that block's separate from this block. And these pieces go all the way back. They're separate. They tie into the DPF back there. And this little shield here sits on there. I think it just basically keeps the radiator hose from getting in the fan. Got the air box in. By golly, we are getting close. I got to get the radiator set back in there and check some fluids. And we'll crank this sucker and see what happens. Fingers crossed. All right, there she is, all back together. The dust, I blew the radiator out. It's clean. That radiator is easy to put in. It's basically just 4 hoses, 2 hydraulic hoses, 2 coolant hoses. There's a bracket right here you gotta take off, but I guess it's time to crank on this old girl and see what happens. All right, guys, thank goodness there she is, all back together. It went pretty good, but she purrs like a kitten and ready to go back to work. I got I think I botched their name earlier, and I apologize if I did, but their MFG sticker on there. Jonathan and these guys, huge help. Gave me some stickers, got the hat, gave me a shirt that's over there on the table yet. But most of all, I cannot thank you enough for the help with the injectors. You guys came through for me big time on that and found the root of my problem, which was a rusty fuel cap. So greatly, greatly appreciate that. I got one of his stickers here. We got to officially get him stuck on the sticker wall. I put him up here next to Miss Elite because she's a lot better looking than Mr. Elite or Jason, but this is the only spot I got. So we'll stick you right there, buddy. Got your phone number right there if I ever need it. So thanks a million. Guys, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. Hope you enjoyed the video. I'm gonna get this girl out of the shop and put her back to work because we got some injectors to pay for.